Hello, welcome back. We're at the Beaver Creek Conference here in Colorado, and I'm with Dr. Peter McGow, the Chief Exploration Officer and co-founder over at MAG Silver. Peter, good to see you.
Pleasure to meet you, Peter.
Let's just start off, quick company overview. Who are you? What are you doing at the moment?
Well, we are an exploration-focused silver company developing with Fresnillo PLC, the operating partner of a joint venture, what will be one of the world's biggest silver mines in very short order in the state of Zacatecas in Mexico, producing initially probably 20 million ounces of silver a year.
Amazing. Okay, before we go into the project, can you just give us a little bit on capital structure and corporate structure of the company, sort of how many shares, sort of market cap, that sort of thing?
That's pretty easy. We have right around 100 million shares outstanding. Mm-hmm. We launched the company in 2003, so we've been very fortunate to do most of our financings at market highs. And our current share price is around 17 Canadian, so that gives us about a 1.7 billion market cap. Having 100 million shares makes the market cap calculation pretty easy.
Awesome, okay. And let's just touch on Juanicipio. Obviously, you're developing the project at the moment. How's that going? Is it on time, on budget? What?
It's on budget. It's a little bit over time because of COVID primarily. Right now, everything is complete. The mill is ready to go. We're just waiting for final approval to flip the switch and connect to the regional power grid. We've actually been producing for a year and a half. So the development muck, some test stoping material has already been processed at the mills next door that have a little excess capacity. That's ramped up to a pretty significant point. In July, we produced 1 million payable ounces of silver, running at about half of what our capacity will be, and doing that from highly diluted development muck at a grade of about 567 grams of silver. That's pretty impressive for a startup.
You mentioned that you're waiting on something to flick the switch. What is that, and how long might that take?
Well, in Mexico, the Federal Electrical Commission controls the electrical grid. They want to make sure that when you have a new installation that is drawing power, that everything goes smoothly and you're not blacking out villages and schools and things like that. So we're taking it carefully and cautiously.
Okay. Obviously, you're a well-renowned geologist. I wouldn't mind actually touching on the geology of Juanicipio. Maybe you can remind people of what type of ore body it is and really the grade and the sort of size of the deposit.
Okay, well, the Fresnillo district itself is a classic high-grade epithermal vein camp. It has been in intermittent production since it was found in outcrop in 1553. Between production and resources, it's around 3.3 billion ounces of silver, which makes it the world's biggest silver mine. And one of the things about it geologically is it developed at a time of very substantial extension at the time of mineralization. So the veins have very laterally continuous mineralization in them, which is quite different from most epithermal vein districts where you tend to have pinching and swelling shoots. This is just continuous mineralization. Our principal vein, when you take its full length into account, is 8 kilometers of continuous mineralization.
Awesome, okay. And how does this look in terms of economics of the project? So obviously you own around 44%, Fresnillo own the rest. What's the scale of this in terms of what sort of revenue could you be turning in and when it's in full-scale production? What's your all-in sustaining costs, that sort of thing?
Well, based on our 2017 PEA, which is a bit out of date, which is based on a resource as of 2016, which is a bit out of date because we've been drilling about 20,000 meters a year ever since then. That gives us production of free cash flow for at least the first 6 years of between $80 and $100 million. The PEA gives us an all-in sustaining cost on the basis of silver equivalent of about $6 an ounce, but we have, in addition to an average grade of between 500 and 600 grams silver, we have almost 2 grams of gold and multiple percents of base metals on top of that. So if you take it on a byproduct basis, the cost to produce an ounce of silver is very low.
Okay. And how does it work with the partnership with Fresnillo? I assume, are they the operators of this mine, and what's your responsibility now that it's going into production?
Everything through the joint venture is done through a technical committee and a board of directors. We have 2 members on both of those. They have 3 on both of those. The technical committee meets periodically. We make decisions together. All of our decisions have been unanimous, and considerable give and take, and then it goes to the board approves.
Okay, and I sort of wanted to get, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you was about obviously you've got this world-class asset that's going into production. But what's next for the company in terms of you've got exploration upside here as well, and you've obviously got other assets outside of Mexico. Maybe let's just stay on Juanicipio. What's the exploration model at the moment? What sort of scale are we looking at in terms of what could be here?
Well, in Juanicipio, we have just under 4,000 hectares of ground. We've explored about 5% of that. There's very good geologic indications that there could be multiple additional high-grade veins on the property. So the whole idea is, and the history of exploration in the district is finding one vein swarm after another. And so the potential is to find more.
And what's the work program at the moment looking like in terms of, have you committed a budget and have you got a work plan, and are you expecting to do some drilling over the next few months or even a year or so?
We have a $7 million budget for exploration this year. A lot of that was dedicated to infill and stepping out on the Valdecañas vein itself, but this year we've put a series of holes into a target that we've been high on for a long time in the northwest corner of the claim, and that program's in progress, as is permitting for several other, perhaps even more exciting targets further to the south, to the Valdecañas vein.
Amazing. So when does drilling potentially start at these new targets, and when could we potentially start seeing assays and results for those?
Well, assays, when you see assays these days, depends on the labs more than anything else, yeah. But that's all in process. We tend to release things in batches. We don't do it a hole at a time. Mm-hmm. And when we get to drill the others depends on the progress made on surface access. And Fresnillo has a very well thought out and very meticulously executed program of surface rights acquisitions and everything. It's a sensitive issue in a large district like that where you're dealing with a lot of different stakeholders. So they manage it very carefully, and once the pieces fall into place, then we'll get to go drill.
Okay, and maybe let's just look outside of Mexico quickly. Tell us about the exploration. Obviously you've got Diltrao, and then you've just acquired a new project as well back in March. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about those assets and why you think, or really why they're worth looking at for you guys.
Well, the Deer Trail asset is a carbonate replacement system, which is just a fancy way of talking about mineralization that stems from a reaction between ore fluids and limestone. And in this particular case, these systems are associated with intrusive centers, sometimes productive porphyry, sometimes not. One of the important things about Deer Trail is it lies on the same major regional structure that hosts the Tintic District, just up the road, and a little farther up the road from that, the Bingham Canyon Copper Mine, one of the world's 2 or 3 biggest copper mines, from which they mined carbonate replacement mineralization for 50 years before they even started thinking about mining the copper. So we're focused on the very high-grade silver, lead, zinc, copper, gold mineralization that occurs in the replacement zone, which is what was mined historically. But we also suspect that there is a Bingham age porphyry in the system, which would give us a second leg to that particular stool. Plus, these systems typically have more than one spoke, so you can think of the porphyry as the hub and these replacement zones as spokes around it, and we've got a number of indications that there are additional spokes to that system.
And how much work has been done on this Deer Trail asset to date?
Well, we've only had the property since 2018, and we hit the ground running because we inherited decades of previous work done when the district was more fragmented than it is now. So the first thing we did was consolidate the district, consolidate the data, the 20,000 meters of historic drilling, mostly done around the mine, but there were a few deep holes looking for porphyries in the past, some of which looked like they were very near misses that just weren't recognized. So we are exploring it on a integrated district scale model, and we have all the land to cover that. So if it's there, it's all ours.
Brilliant. And just to get a sense of when we might be able to get some news flow on that particular asset, are you doing work on that one at the moment?
Yes, we completed phase 1 drilling last year, and we put out the results a year ago, November. And we achieved our 3 goals, which was to find what we projected to be a more favorable carbonate unit, limestone unit, depth in the system. Just didn't crop out. We thought it was there. Drill hole proved it was. Proved that we could track the plumbing of the system from where we could see it in the old workings and old drilling to depth. And we actually found some high-grade mineralization associated with it, plus a lot of high-temperature alteration, all of which give us vectors that tell us which way to go to keep following the system, which is what we are actively doing right now. There's a drill hole turning on hole number 11 now.
Okay, so just obviously you found with the drills that you did hit, obviously it sounds like they've been encouraging, continuing to work on them. What was the sort of grade and what was the, I guess,
well,
what did that look like?
The best hole was just under 2 meters at 950 grams silver, 34 grams gold, and 8 or 9% combined lead zinc with 1.5% or 2% copper, something like that. This is actually the kind of historic grades that we got in this mine. So it's a very high grade system, and it's worth pointing out that our fundamental premise for exploration is district scale and high grade. And when we say high grade, we mean something that will make money under almost any market conditions and big enough to last at least 2 market cycles. So you can sleep at night when the prices aren't where you'd like them to be, and you can party all night if that's your predilection when the prices are higher.
What's the corporate strategy with this? Obviously, it's exploration at the moment, and you had the JV with Fresnillo Juanicipio. Do you guys ever want to be the sole operators, or would it ever, if you did build this up big enough over the next couple of years, would you then look to maybe have another JV partner on this, or is this something that you guys want to tackle alone?
We get asked this question a lot, and we're really fortunate in the sense that there's only 10 people involved in MAG, and most of us are explorationists, so what we do is exploration. But our CEO has built 6 major mines around the world in the course of his career, so he understands what it means to make that leap from being an explorer to a producer, and we're pretty comfortable with the model that's evolving at Juanicipio, because effectively we're 44% owner of what's going to be a major mine, and they're doing the heavy lifting, which essentially turns us into a quasi-royalty company. So that's a pretty interesting model, and one that we will consider pursuing. But we'll drive it as far up the value-added curve as we can and make that decision once we get there.
And can you just tell us about this new asset in Canada that you acquired back in March as well, and sort of why you decided to acquire it?
Well, we acquired it because, as always, we thought there was an opportunity for making a major discovery based on considerable work that had been done before. What we bought was a company that owned 7 kilometers of the Cadillac Larder Break, right smack in the heart of the Abitibi, which has produced, 200 million ounces of gold, 200 million ounces of gold historically. On one side of us is the Kirkland Lake District, which has produced 70 million ounces. On the other is Kerr Addison, which has produced 12. And we have a big chunk of the primary structure in between, where exploration has historically focused very shallowly. If you look at Kirkland Lake, if you look at Kerr Addison, those mines don't get big and don't get particularly high grade till you get 500 or 600 meters below the surface. So the previous work that had been done was done from 200 meters to the surface, with a few drill holes drilled deeper than that had some pretty significant grades, a meter of 66 grams that wasn't followed up on. So our model is that we think the potential lies to depth. We've got the same geologists running the program now who are handcuffed and told you can't drill deeper than 200 meters. So we've got their bottled up enthusiasm and ideas. We were able to hit the ground running right after we bought the project. So we're on our 4th hole there. So we're pretty excited by being able to prove the concept.
And just so I can get an idea of when we might be able to get some more news flow on this and get an understanding of maybe what the targets look like at depth. I mean, when might we be able to see some drilling results here and really understand if the conceptual model of the depth and the high grade is continued?
Well, again, this is phase 1 drilling. We're 4 holes into a 3,000 meter minimum program, and based on the way the labs are working, we would hope by the end of the year we'll have some results that we can talk about.
Okay. All right. Well, I think just to finish things off, I mean, I know throughout this whole process we've been talking about when we might be expecting certain things, but I guess as just a summary, over the next 6 to 12 months, what are the key drivers and value adds that you're expecting to come through?
Well, that's very simple. The biggest value add is being able to flip the switch on the mill. Yeah. There's been high expectations that we would have done that by now, so we've been beat up a little bit in the market because of that, which creates a buying opportunity for people, and there's every reason to believe that flip switch is going to get flipped fairly soon. That will shift us overnight from being a developer to being a producer on a fast track to becoming one of the biggest silver producers in the world. So that's a by anybody's standards, that ought to be quite the catalyst. Plus, we have exploration drilling going on there. We have exploration drilling going on at Deer Trail. We have exploration drilling going on at Larder. So the drill rig could give us a pleasant surprise at any moment.
Awesome. Peter, thank you.
A real pleasure, Peter. Nice to meet you.